All right. So when we did our directions for 2009, when Chris was on the stage a year ago in January, we talked about some of the unknowns. And one of those unknowns, of course, is government. They're here to help, sort of. And sometimes I wonder what would happen if they didn't help us quite so much. But we were worried about credit. We were worried about action or no action. Remember, about that time, in January of 2009, we were wondering if there was going to be a new tax credit. We'd finished an older one that had to be paid back. We had all kinds of things going on, and frankly, that was probably a bust for the most part because it was poorly advertised, shall we say, and certainly not well explained, and a lot of people just didn't want to get involved and probably didn't really get on the bandwagon soon enough. Now, the 2009 outlook in January of last year, we looked at, we forecast pressure on pricing, certainly got it. The first, the median home price in January of 2009 did go down from December, but then it was flat for 3 months, went down 2 more months, and then has been flat almost ever since. We knew that bank-owned properties would continue in their market, and pre-bank-owned properties in the form of short sales also enter the market. One thing that I didn't believe when I saw the numbers, but I went back and checked them myself, is that fully 50% plus of all the listings in December of 2009 who were coming on the market as a foreclosure property, a bank-owned property, had never been a short sale, never even been listed in the last year. I was shocked to find out that most of them never tried or weren't even part of it. So when we look at the solutions that we're anticipating for this next year, one of the things that we can do is certainly help out by making sure that we get involved with people early and use the tools that the foreclosure prevention team has put together, and then use the solutions for sales that we know about when it's appropriate. We said there would be an increase in sales, recorded transactions during 2009, and that's very definitely the case. We did see a record amount of growth in that time. So one of the things I wanted to do right now is just summarize some myth busters. And the idea that prices are falling every month, we hear that stuff all the time. What's the truth is that prices fell last spring, and they did fall a little bit in the month of January, but I expect that they'll level off again. And the median home prices have actually been stable for 7 months, and they ended up actually in December just a little bit, almost 3%. The other idea that home sales are down. I think we've seen enough of that. The idea is that sales were up every quarter of 2009 over 2008. They're up 45% for the year. December was a record December, perhaps for all time. We don't really have any decent records beyond 1990, electronically anyway, but I dare say I don't think there were any years prior to that where we had sales like our December that we just finished. And think about this, the closings in December were probably done by people that did not expect the tax credit. If you think about what it took to get to be a closing in December, most of them went into escrow in October, maybe the very earliest part of November, maybe months before that. And with the expiration of the credit at the end of November, that record closing month, many of them did not anticipate that we would extend, or at least they certainly couldn't guarantee it. Okay, the other myth that we have is that inventory is too high. And one of the things that any of you practicing with buyers right now understands very quickly is that inventory is actually 45% lower than it was in 2008. And if anything, it's very scarce, certainly in the target pricing ranges under $200,000 for a lot of our first-time buyers, and they're virtually non-existent for bank-owned homes for most part. We have a 10-month supply back in December of 2008. And when you look at 2009, we were at a 6-month supply. We're hovering at 7 right now. So this is right in that range of being a balanced market. It's a bit of a misnomer because the bottom end of the market is driving everything right now. The top end of the market, we're seeing about 30 sales a month come in the price range above $450. So all the rest of it is below that price range, and certainly a major piece of it is in the bottom half, bottom quarter actually. So the Mythbusters. Prices falling, home sales are down, inventory is too high. I think we can safely say right now that that isn't true. So, summarizing the Dragon Slayers, sales are actually up. We have low interest rates, at least for the foreseeable future, and it's very unlikely that they're going to increase so fast that they would be anything even approaching what we used to consider high interest rates. I know that I was just delirious in 1988 to get about a 10.5% interest rate on the home that I bought that year. Some of you certainly remember the 80s when you were delirious that you could get a 15% rate instead of 18. So think about it in perspective. 6% doesn't really sound too bad, and we're at 5 now. So that's one of the better things we can talk about. And the tax credits continue. It's not clear at all whether there'll be an extension. I think we should live our lives to make sure that we don't forecast those kind of things too much. At this point, they may not. We have them now, and so it's certainly time to help some people take advantage of those. And I have a personal situation where one of my buyers specifically said to me of their own that they were not interested in buying the wrong home just to get the tax credit. And I think that's really important. On the other hand, the tax credit can really help someone get into a house that they might not have been able to get into before. And remember, they are qualifying for mortgages. They do have FICO scores. They do have jobs. And the idea that they're just fogging a mirror to get a mortgage, it's gone. I think that part at least we can all support. So, remember where we left our flyer. 2010, let's see where we might look for a solution. Small target. I've been told that that was faked, but I don't care. I like it anyway. I don't care at all. Any questions? One of the things that before I take your question, I see you. We got to figure out, what's in this for us? Who cares? So what? Why are we doing this? The numbers don't mean anything unless we apply some of this information. So what do you do with it? Well, when you know that prices are at a certain point, you can use this to certainly show clients where things are and put them in perspective and try to give them a sense of comfort about the future. And if they're buying a home for the right reasons, if you look at buying it correctly, then real estate still makes a good long-term solution for a lot of folks. Question? I don't think anyone has been able to get somebody high up in the banking organizations or anyone to say what they really believe or what's really going on. We've certainly tried at the state level, the national level, and others, but my sense of what's going on is simple. You got to follow the money and look at who has an incentive to do something. And right now it appears that the banks are actually in better shape having inventory off books or in their inventory but not discounted to a sale price than they are to get it sold. The federal government has insisted that the banks look good and have their reserves up, and it appears to me that if they have non-performing loans, they're still accruing payments on those things. They look better than if they have a property that they've taken back at actual foreclosure sale. And when it comes to the foreclosure sale, they are actually putting them on the market pretty well. The average time from actual trustee's deed to listing is only about 45 days. It's just as you correctly said, not very many of them are getting to the trustee's sale. So we are selling everything that they put on the market, basically. And that's a fact. Chris? Sure. Actually, we did some research, and I was working with Steve Schiller from Tycor, and we went back and looked at the actual trustee's deeds. We took the listings in the month of December and analyzed them all the way back to their beginnings. We filtered out the second mortgage notice of defaults and the HOAs, and at the time we did this was a month ago, but we were looking at about 1,100 homes that were in orbit somewhere. that certainly could be released if they were, allowed to be released. It didn't appear to be the 5 and 10 and 20 and 30,000 numbers that we hear. Some of those were for the whole state, of course. And if you look at any number, if the South has, 80% of it, then we get the rest. So somewhere in that, under 2,000 number is probably the real number. And I don't believe it's that 4,000 or 5,000 number at all. It appears to be about 1,100 by the calculations we did. And I would love to see them come on the market. We could handle 100 extra of those every month, and they could get rid of that inventory in a very short supply, very, very short time. The servicers certainly don't have the incentive to staff as much as they would need to handle this problem as if it were a money-making proposition. That's part of the problem, sir.